Hey everyone, Cary here on Ask Kolat, presented by RUDIS. First, let me say, if you have questions for me, you can post them under this video on the website. You can tweet at the RUDIS Twitter handle, or tweet at myself, or you can always email RUDIS or email me at kolat@kolat.com, and I'll try to answer them for you. I really do enjoy answering them, and if you keep them coming, we'll keep this show rolling. The question I had this week was about transitioning from the elementary school level to middle school to high school to college and senior level, and then there was a second part to it, was asking about when you lack quality training partners, how do you get through that hurdle? For youth wrestling is really dangerous because if you start too early, sports are good, we should be involved in it. You start too early and you start having success too early, what happens is there's typically very few people are just naturally gifted out of the gate. Like I know for a fact I won a lot of matches as a youth level because I was stronger and a little meaner than other kids. But I had good coaches who saw were planning ahead and realized and fixed my technique. And an example is just some kid's bigger and stronger than the other kids, and he's got a double and he can run through them faster. And you have 4 to 5 years of success at the youth level with this low level technique in terms of how you're perfecting it, but you're getting away with it with strength. And then you get to the next coach at the next level, and it's hard to fix. So you got to really make sure you're paying attention to the technique of a youth level kid. When he's getting ready to transition on, you got to continually fix it because there's no way it's going to be right. In middle school and elementary school level, it's all foundations. It's still foundations. Nobody knows where your career is going to go. I think I saw this week a lot of people were out there tweeting about youth wrestling, and even Ben had addressed it, and I saw Burroughs had put something on there on his Twitter, but really nobody cares what you're doing at the youth level. I mean, it's just foundations of sports. It's getting kids out. It's getting them socialized with other kids. It's having some fun. That's all it is. Nobody really cares about what you do at the youth level. Especially if you're looking to go long term. But it's important that you do those things. I mean, I have 3 kids. I keep them in sports, and it's just so they're out having fun. So middle school and youth is just technique focused over and over again, and discipline, and the work that it's required to be a great wrestler. That's the whole foundation, developing those disciplines as a kid comes up through. Then you start getting into junior high and high school. Then it's going to start getting more serious, right? Fan bases go up. Pressures in arenas get bigger, and then you hope at that time that person has that foundation. So there is not a large gap between going from youth wrestling to middle school wrestling to high school. At high school, you start seeing somewhat of a gap, and the reason you see somewhat of a gap is because at the high school level, you see these kids who are specializing in wrestling, and when they get to high school, they've got some experience over a lot of kids that come in there, and so you see this gap starting to widen. And how do you make that? The only way you can make that transition is to find out where you're coming up short, right? And whether it's on the fundamentals or whether I'm just getting beat in certain positions and putting in the time and the correction to do it. And that's discipline. That's willing to do the work to make the corrections and play catch up if you're behind a little bit, especially if you're a 2 or 3 sport athlete. And you're going to have to play catch up. And you only get that catch-up from what you learned at the youth level or middle school level with the discipline to put the work in to fix it. So there is a gap. The gap starts to widen from middle school to high school with these kids who are specialized. And we've seen some really good kids out there nowadays with these clubs. And a club is one way to put extra time in, and that takes discipline to go there from your high school practice, and then try to find extra workouts with kids at clubs at different areas with different coaches. To make up and close the gap as quick as you can. But, I'd really rather talk about the gap between high school and college, and I'm probably talking to a bunch of parents out there that really don't understand it because they didn't wrestle at a Division I level, and they think they know it, but you don't really know it unless you're in the fire. Unless you've been in the fire, you don't understand the gap from high school to college. And the crazy parent thinks that it's just a normal progression. You were a successful son in elementary school, you were successful in middle school, and you were successful in high school, and you're just going to go on and be successful in college. But changes at that point, right? The boys become men, Guys are a lot stronger, a lot tougher, The biggest thing is they're more focused. But think of it like this: I think there's like something like 150,000 or 250,000 wrestlers, in the country that start out at the bottom of this pyramid, and the pyramid gets smaller as you go up. And when you get to the top, when you get to the Division I level, you're talking about 77 programs. There's only 77 programs at the D1 level. And the average roster is going to be about 30 guys. And so you're looking at like, I don't know, what's that? We're at like 2,100, 2,700 guys left from this big pool of fish that you started with. And like the saying goes, that coach said, that even the bad ones are good. Even the bad ones take longer to break down before you can start scoring your techniques if you're not quite there yet. Even the bad ones are going to be stronger than what you're used to wrestling. And this is, so that transition is not that normal thing that you're used to. You want it to be that way, but at that point it ends. When you go to Division I wrestling, it ends. You're at the top of the pyramid, and there's 77 programs. It's not like a bunch of high schools. When you go to some high school tournament across the country or on the East Coast or in the Midwest, there's thousands of high schools out there with wrestling teams, and there's a lot of bad fish in that sea. And they all get weeded out when you go to the Division I level. And so if you're a parent thinking you're getting frustrated watching your son, which you can't do anything anyway now, he's a man, he's grown up. When you get frustrated watching it, you got to remember that you may not have been in that, and don't understand that it's no longer one simple. It's like 5 flights of stairs. So that's the biggest transition, that we have in our sport. And then you go to the next transition, which is if you want to get into senior level stuff. Yeah, that's a whole different ball game, man. Now you're talking about the planet and all the kids who started out at, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years old, some Russian in Krasnoyarsk who's been training in the cold, right, and just perfecting his craft and probably didn't start competing till he was 16, 17. They're good the time they get out there. They're really good. And you only get great at that level is having a really open mind, right? You can't have a fixed mindset where you're caught up on winning and losing, not at the senior level. You have one of those mindsets, you're not going very, very far. You have to have a very competitive, focused mindset that you're open to the possibility of matching a guy's pace or wrestling to a level you never did and always trying to wrestle up to that level. I always tell people all the time, I didn't just learn from my losses. I learned from my wins as well. I remember walking off the mat beating people that I didn't realize, how did I just beat this guy? But I knew my level had come up, from facing a better opponent. Wrestling Tadiev multiple times, my level of wrestling had come up. Wrestling, world champions from Russia, my level had come up, and coming out on those victories. But you have to have an open mind at that level. I mean, that's the professional level, right? You don't go out there trying to protect something. And you see it sometimes, because some guys still will. In the last 30 seconds, they're not really protecting the match. They're trying to be a little strategic, and maybe they shut down their offense too soon. I wouldn't say they were closing their mind up and fixed at that moment, but that's a big jump. There's a big wide gap between college and that level of wrestling. That's a small window of guys, a very small pool of people that will ever make a world team or an Olympic team. But quality training partner question is congrats. If you have that problem, then you're doing something right. And that's, I get that all the time when recruiting kids. They're like, Coach, we're trying to find partners. Well, congrats. Like, obviously if we're recruiting you or talking to you, then you're doing something right. And that's everybody's problem. And, you make up for that. I trained at Lock Haven for years, I won a silver medal, my senior year in college. And people, how did you do it? When people tell me I don't have partners, and I had like 3 or 4 freshmen that I would bring in. I'd make them come in and say, okay, you're going to drill with me for 20 minutes. And when that guy got tired, I had to go to the next guy for 20 minutes. So I didn't have one guy that could really match me. So in order to do that, I had to have 3 to 4 guys rotate on me to give me a simulation of what it would be like in the NCAA finals, or give me a simulation of what's going to feel like in the world finals, just because I had to exhaust myself, still try to maintain great technique and still keep scoring points and not making mistakes and have my defense in play at the same time. And, every minute or two I'd have somebody fresh rotate on me. And that's what you got to do, right? There's nobody cares if you didn't have partners. If you go out there and you're not victorious, all they remember is the guy who won. They don't make excuses for you and say, well, you have better partners, that's why you won. So you have to come up with ways to get around. Those are just hurdles. Those are what champions do. They find ways to knock down those hurdles. It's like people always say, well, I don't have a weight room, or I'd be so. Look, everybody in the world knows that push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups, and body weight jumps and squats are some of the hardest things that you can do. There's a lot of crappy weight rooms around in Europe, and these guys still come on the mat strong. That's just part of being, becoming a great, champion at anything you do is knocking down hurdles and not making excuses and finding ways through it. So if you lack quality training partners, try to get in the car and find some. Call people, get on the phone. If that's not working, then get 3 or 4 people rotating on you. That's the only thing you can do. And the truth is, what's probably going to happen is you're going to make those people better, and you become that measuring stick for them. They see how you're working, and then before you know it, maybe you have 3 or 4 people doing the same thing, coming in doing the late nights, everybody working together, and it changes the whole program. One guy can change a program, and yes, many coaches. You get one NCAA champion, your program changes. And so one guy does make a difference, and you can be that difference a lot of times. But again, questions, email, tweet, go to therudis.com, post under this video. Really do enjoy the talks. Just keep firing the questions. We'll keep doing it. Have a good night, and talk to you all next week.